Sacred woman I am. With bare feet I walk across the river's stones. With water in my blood and the earth in my bones. I tend a fire in my heart so I am never alone. Sacred woman I am. Sacred woman I am.
Hello and welcome to Rite of Passage, breaking the silence around menopause. My name is Michela Sborchia and today I interviewed Dr. Geraldine Connolly, consultant in obstetrics and gynecology. Dr. Geraldine Connolly has many years of experience in working with women in menopause, and now she's on a very important mission. She's traveling across Ireland to talk about the menstrual cycle to teenagers and their mothers. Today, with Dr. Geraldine Connolly, we discussed hormone replacement therapy, we discussed lifestyle changes, we talked about hormones and the different phases of menopause, from perimenopause to menopause, postmenopause, and we also talked about induced menopause. I really enjoyed this talk with Dr. Geraldine Connolly. He gave me a greater understanding of my body, and I hope you'll enjoy it too. Hello, Geraldine. Thank you for being here. And so today I want to talk to you about the physiological and physical aspect of anatomy and physiology, let's put it this way, of menopause. Because talking to women, sometimes I hear that we actually don't know what's happening physically and physiologically inside our body. We know we are going through menopause, the period is stopping, hormones are, the levels of hormones are going down, but we don't actually know, apart from that, the general fact, we don't know very much. So could you explain what it is, perimenopause, menopause, and induced menopause?
Sure, yeah. So thanks a million for having me on. I'm absolutely delighted to be here, and I'm really thrilled that you're doing this, because I think this is going to be a balanced approach if I know you at all, and I think I know you to an extent, which I think is really, really important when we come to talk about menopause. So, and as you probably are aware, Paula and I have been involved with My Girls Gynae, and we're all about setting young girls up to have a healthy reproductive life and eventually, hopefully, to have a healthy menopause. So it's all about fluctuation in your hormones. And I always say, I've been saying it since we started this, is that they're the two sides of the same coin. That, in puberty, where, the hormones are fluctuating, and they actually start affecting the brain actually from around about the age of 8 or 9, if you have your period at about 12. So there's a lead-in time there that we don't really see until such time as the breasts start to develop and the growth spurts happen and all that kind of stuff. But the stuff going on in the background before we know anything really. Similarly, on the other side of it, coming down, we start to have all sorts of things beginning to happen and effects on our brain from fluctuating hormones. And as we do divide the menopausal situation now into perimenopause and menopause. And postmenopause, because there is a life after menopause.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yes.
So menopause is the easiest definition. So menopause basically is diagnosed 1 year after you've stopped having spontaneous periods. Bang, easy. One day, that's menopause. It's gone. So you're either premenopausal or perimenopausal, or you're postmenopausal. So and then we will come back to early menopause, because I think that's a very important definition. So what's happening is that we are all born with the same amount of eggs that we're not making new eggs all the time the way men make new sperm all the time. So as we age, we begin to reduce the number of eggs in our ovaries, reduce, and eventually they stop being released because there aren't enough there to be released. So we have a gland in our head called the pituitary gland, and that releases two hormones called FSH and LH. And FSH is the most important in terms of stimulating our ovaries to produce an egg. So what happens in perimenopause and coming up into menopause is that the ovary is becoming less responsive because it has fewer eggs, right? So that means that the pituitary gland is firing out lots and lots and lots of FSH, okay? And it usually it works in a very nice negative feedback loop, but because it's a bit chaotic, our hormones are fluctuating all the time. That's really important. So what's happening during perimenopause is that the hormones, the estrogen hormone is going bananas up and down, as is the FSH hormone. So that's really the cause of a lot of the symptoms that we get. And interestingly, so the most important, if you like, or the most diagnostic, if you like, symptom of perimenopause is the hot flushes and the night sweats, right?
Yeah.
So we still, from a medical point of view, don't really understand why that happens, believe it or not. So when years ago, I ran a menopause clinic years ago as a senior registrar in the Rotunda, actually, back in the 2000s, which was a different time. And back then we believed, and there was evidence to suggest that FSH, the high levels of FSH, the ones from your pituitary gland, and the fluctuation in this was a reason why you were getting your hot flushes. Now, the suggestion is that it's the fluctuating levels of estrogen. That's kind of like a medical, discussion. It actually isn't that important as far as the woman is concerned. She's getting her hot flushes and her night sweats, and that's the big issue. Yeah. So I think that's kind of it in terms of where we're going. So estrogen, yeah. So there's lots and lots of estrogen receptors all over the body. Okay, we have them in our skin, we have them in our salivary glands, we have in our bowels, we have them obviously in our wombs, in our ovaries. Particularly importantly, we have them in our vaginas and our vulvas because they really start to suffer during menopause. And we have them in our bones. Basically, we have estrogen receptors everywhere. So if we think about estrogen levels decreasing, it's going to have an effect on all sorts of areas in our lives. Yeah.
Yes, that's why, when you go into menopause, you have different symptoms and don't understand why, but as you explain it, because, estrogen is everywhere. So it makes sense.
Yeah, the estrogen receptors are everyher, and the estrogen is kind of decreasing. So we're not key. So, even like estrogen is important for our skin, because we have receptors there. So like our collagen and all that stuff that keeps us young. Yeah.
In fact, I'm taking collagen. I've been taking collagen for a few years now because,
Well, you look very well, but you're very young. I'm not convinced, to be honest, the collagen, it works, but I think the jury is still out. Sorry. Yeah, I think the jury is still out about that.
I know. It's like, I hope it works.
I know. Yeah. Well, it's not going to do you any harm. That's
exactly,
what
exactly. Like,
I know.
Oh no, I know. Some women have talked to me about induced menopause. Is that when, they have like an illness or they had surgery? Is it, what happens there?
Yeah. So induced menopause are, so there's two slightly different areas here. So you've got an induced menopause. So that's usually a sudden onset, and it's usually in women, probably in their like mid-40s or younger. So basically their hormone levels are trekking along, all lovely, hunky-dory, and suddenly bang, something happens and their menopause comes crashing in. And these women have dreadful symptoms. They are just the worst type of symptoms that you can have is with an induced menopause. Okay. And the main reasons for that would be surgery, if you have to remove your ovaries for whatever reason. So that's obviously going to put you into menopause, but also other things such as chemotherapy or radiotherapy. So sometimes if you have a pelvic malignancy or something like that, you're going to need radiotherapy.
Yeah.
And actually, I saw a couple of girls actually, when I was in practice doing the adolescent stuff, I had a little girl, actually, she's lovely, and she had total body irradiation for some kind of a blood cancer. Wow. So she never went into puberty.
Oh no. Oh my
So, because
God.
her ovaries were, I mean,
Yeah.
fried, with the
Jesus.
radiotherapy. So it is. So radiotherapy is a really significant reason why people go into early menopause. And then the other people that go into menopause are the people who've had breast cancer, because a lot of breast cancer is estrogen dependent. And we give medications to these women that are antagonistic to the estrogen receptors, because you want to block the effect of the estrogen on the tissues, because you don't want further breast cancer tissue growing. So of course this will have effects all over the place as well. So these are the types of, and for example, depending on why you've had surgery, or depending on why you're having your radiotherapy or your chemotherapy, it would be a nice idea to add in some HRT for some time, because really these girls really, really suffer. Unfortunately, with breast cancer, we can't often do that. And now that is another day's work in terms of treatment and stuff like that, but certainly not in the initial stages. Really, you're really needing to block the estrogen. So people do go into menopause situations there.
Yeah. I can imagine, like, we are so dependent from our hormones, and then from one day to another, you don't have that. I cannot imagine, like,
yeah. I know it's a really difficult time. The other area then that I'd like to mention is what we call POI. So this is called premature ovarian insufficiency. So this is a natural menopause, but it happens too early. Okay. So it happens under the age of, say, 40. All right. So you're gone into menopause by the age of 40. Again, in my practice, I've seen 28-year-olds with premature ovarian insufficiency. And again, this is very tragic for young women who may not have had babies. Their egg reserve is really reduced. Their hormones are, the estrogen is going down, the FSH is going up. They are girls that also need hormone replacement therapy, because in order to protect bones and heart and all the rest of it, it's very, very important to keep them well. And for all sorts of other reasons as well. So they could really benefit from HRT as well. But this, again, a lot of these girls, we don't really know why. I mean, all sorts of things happen with puberty and with menopause. Some girls don't go into puberty at all, and I would have been giving girls medication to get them into puberty with various different medical illnesses. And some girls have very early menopauses, and then I had a really late menopause, 58, a genie.
Me too. I mean, I'm in perimenopause now, and I'm at the age where I should be menopause. So, I don't know. I guess I'm lucky.
You are lucky. You're lucky. You're lucky.
I mean, and then my symptoms, I can have, like, sometimes I get severe symptoms, like, I can get into depression quite quickly, but it's not like it doesn't last for for days. It's just hours during the day. But the symptoms are there. But no, I am at the age I should be. I mean, my friends are in menopause, and I'm still in perimenopause, bleeding here and there.
All that good living, and I think that's very important. I think really, stuff that actually helps us with maybe delaying the onset of menopause, but also with the level of symptoms that we get, is all that boring stuff that everybody always talks about. And a couple of things really important. Being a healthy weight is really, really important. Not drinking too much. And actually the number of women that are actually drinking too much is, without even realizing it, like a half a bottle of wine at night, every night at home. Doesn't seem like an awful lot, but actually people are coming into hospital with liver failure, because women are much more susceptible than men to the effects of alcohol. But that aside, it has an effect on the flushes. I mean, I don't know if you've had a big night out and you've had a lot of drink, and you're sleeping the following that night, you're going to be sweating in the bed, and that's alcohol related. So add that into your menopause sweats, and sure you might as well forget the night.
Yeah, it's true, because I used to have some hot flashes some years ago when it started. Here and there, but I stopped drinking alcohol. And I didn't do it on purpose. It just happened. I didn't want to drink anymore because obviously because I do meditation and yoga and all these other things. So alcohol and that didn't mix very well for me. But
Yeah.
I have noticed that, less alcohol, less hot flashes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And also less alcohol, less weight. Not that you're,
No,
you don't need,
thank
you
God.
really don't need to worry about your weight. But if you're drinking a lot, you will put on weight because there's a
Yeah.
huge amount of empty calories in alcohol.
Yeah.
Obviously, cigarette smoking is associated with an early menopause, and spicy foods and all of that kind of stuff. We, very much are promoting nowadays what we call a plant-forward diet. We're not saying you have to be vegetarian. We're not saying you have to be anything, but we are saying that, really to try and get back to the way that we ate, our grandparents ate, which I know you have covered in another area, so I'm not going to go into that. But like, it's really important actually to do. There's so much that we can actually do. And there's so much information out there about it all. I just find it all fascinating reading it all.
There's so much. I mean, the information is out there. It's great deal of information. I was, researching because I am in perimenopause. So when I discovered that, I went online and researched so much, and that's why I'm putting this together, because there is so much everywhere.
Yeah,
and I wanted to have something like that. No, it is interesting. I wanted to ask you something just quickly. Do you think, the way we live today has an influence on the symptoms we have? Because remembering my grandma and my mother, I don't know if it was the age where they wouldn't complain about these things, wouldn't talk about these things. But sometimes I feel like, the lifestyle we have today, it's different from the lifestyle they had. What they ate, what we eat, what they drank, what we drink, the way, different things, and social media and all this kind of stuff. Do you think it has an influence on the severity of the symptoms we have?
Yeah. I mean, I actually do. And, I've come from a crazy lifestyle, if you like, in terms of being a hospital consultant on call, in and out in the middle of the night, Monday to Friday, and some weekends during the year. That's what you call stress, all right? And stress influences our bowels. If you've got a big interview coming up, you're going to be in the toilet before you go into the interview. It's just going to happen, And if it doesn't happen, it means your brain gut thing isn't really working, which is probably not great. But the other thing that's really influenced by stress is our hormones. And I mean, I've seen this with the teenagers, and I've seen it with fertility, and it's definitely a thing that I believe can make our symptoms of menopause worse. And the problem is we're all like, a lot of us have children, a lot of us are holding down a job, and we've got a house to run, and then bang, here comes the parents, and the parents are elderly, and there's an awful lot of pressure on women in their 40s, 50s, and actually now coming into their 60s, as people are living longer. So I definitely believe that stress, and all the causes of stress being the pulling out of people, and the social media, the lack of exercise. Exercise is really, really important. Movement, let's not call it exercise, just movement. Your granny would have been moving much more often than here we are. We're going to be sitting down here for an hour. The likelihood of your granny doing that, on a regular basis was minimal, because, she didn't have a Hoover probably. She would have brushed the floor. She would have mopped the floor, maybe on her hands and knees. She would have prepared all the food from scratch. She's up, moving, hanging out clothes. We're doing, because we've become also automated, and we need to be, because we're working, so you can't do everything. So I absolutely believe, and this is why Paula and I have set up My Girls Guide. Sorry to bang on about it, but really we need to get into these young girls and say, look, you set yourselves up for a healthy life. And it's all the basic stuff. It's all the common sense stuff, really.
Yeah, and I think I told you this before, like when I had my first period, it wasn't something, oh my God, you have your period now. It was, oh wow, you have your period. It was a kind of a celebration. So that tone set the tone really for the rest of my periods. So now that I am in perimenopause, and then eventually I'm going to go in menopause and then postmenopause, I am feeling this transition with optimism, with positivity, with joy. And, I'm moving from one phase of my life to another. So I'm not dreading the moment where I'm going to stop bleeding, because it's going to happen. But I'm actually happy to move into the phase and feel like, I'm becoming someone else, and my body's changing, I am changing. And I see it in a very positive way, in a very balanced way. It's in its natural process, basically. So but because my mother, when I had my first period, she was happy. She didn't say to me, "Oh my God, now you're gonna have this or that."
Because that's so important at that age.
I have friends who had, their first period, and the mother would be like, "Oh my God, now you're gonna have the cramps and the headaches and the mood swings."
Welcome to the curse.
So, and then what happened, actually, in fact, what happened was that their periods were very painful, because in their mind that was supposed to happen.
Yes,
so
our minds are so important. Yeah,
I know, it's just it's crazy, but but that's the way it is. Like, if you have a positive first day, then
totally. And I mean, there's another lovely Italian GP actually that I did a live with, and she had exactly the same experience with her Italian mother, that it was something to be welcomed, and it really sets you up for being positive about it. And particularly at the age of 11, 12, 13, you are taking your cues from your mother. You haven't quite got to the stage where mother is always wrong. So you are taking your cues from your mother. And actually, as well, the other thing that we say to women all the time is that how you behave around your periods and around your stress and around your whole life is a template for your daughter. I mean, I look at myself now and go, oh, Jesus, I'm my mother, and, and we do, I mean, we just absorb it because we're sponges when we're young. And so I think it's really important for us as moms to try and be a more positive role model. Coming into what you were saying about coming into the postmenopausal world. So there's lots of, aging is not great. It happens to us all. What can you do? Death and taxes are the only two absolute definites in life. But like, there are positives to going into the menopause. For example, you're not going to have bleeding or necessarily cramps. You're not going to have premenstrual syndrome or symptoms with breast tenderness, acne, bloating. You don't have to worry about fertility. And it's usually a time in your life when, if you have children, they're moving away, you have more time for yourself. If you've been working, you're maybe pulling back, or maybe not. But you're doing it because you want to do it. Rather, it's a passion project, isn't it? So that's actually very life affirming. So there's lots and lots of positives about postmenopause. And actually, there has been research from the University of Melbourne, which was a really good research study with 400 women starting at the age of 50, and it ran it for 20 years, so until the age of 70. Wow. And it tracked their happiness index. They had various different kind of ways of, and certainly by the time people got to early to mid 60s, they were in a much happier place than they had been pre-menopause. So it's an interesting, and I mean, I'm sure you could get other research things to say it's not, but it's actually a very positive message.
I think it is a very positive message, and I'm actually feeling that way, and even in the women I know from other places, from where I worked, from friends, they don't have this attitude of saying, oh my God, I'm going into perimenopause or menopause, what's going to happen to me? I mean, there are women like that, obviously, because they're different, but in the circle of people I know, there's been a lot of positivity. That's, and what triggered me to kind of start all this thing was the way I felt about it, like the need to talk about it in a very balanced, positive way, because that's the way I feel. Now I'm feeling embodied. Finally, I am feeling embodied now that I'm getting older. Now I'm feeling safer to be
finding
here.
more comfort in your own skin. Yeah,
exactly. Even waking up in the morning. So usually, I would go out, have a little bit of makeup. I don't use a lot of makeup, but just a little bit, and have my hair done. And there are days I feel so confident on my own skin that I don't wear makeup, I don't brush my hair, and I just put on something and go out, and I feel fine, And,
Yeah.
I have my rituals, obviously, I have, my lovely rituals that make me feel safe and happy and protected and grounded. But I am more embodied now
Yeah.
than I was.
And I think that's true for a lot of women as they get older. And because, when you're younger, you walk into a room and you think everybody's looking at you, and
Yes.
and
Yeah.
we know that's not the case now. Everybody's interested in themselves, and they might vaguely notice you unless you do something really silly. So it's so there's a certain confidence that comes with getting a
Oh,
little
yeah.
bit older.
Yeah.
And I think it's lovely that you have a kind of a positive view on this, because unfortunately, the view that's been promoted in the media a lot is a really negative picture. As no more than we were saying about the period starting when the children are getting their periods, and there's all this kind of negative talk. And there's a lot of negative talk around menopause and around the fact that everybody should be on hormone replacement therapy, and aging is a terrible thing. I mean, you know what? HRT is not going to prevent aging. I mean, it's going to delay
Yeah.
some of it, but we are all going to die.
Yeah.
And the resistance is futile. We've
Yeah.
got to just accept the fact that this is happening, and we may as well accept it with good grace. As you know, the yoga way is to no resistance. Because there's no point. It's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, because what we resist, it persists. So you know what I mean? So,
Exactly.
so it's gonna be there anyway. That
Yeah.
we do something about it or not, it's gonna be there. And so even in approaching this new phase of our life, it's a beautiful phase. We're becoming fearless. We don't care about anything anymore. And
Yeah, a lot more self-confident.
yeah, but we are on top of that. Also the self-confidence, but also the fact that we have all this knowledge, that and these experiences. We're going to use them for something good, to create something good for future generations, for the younger generations, and spread the word that it's menopause. We are not fertile anymore, so we can't have babies anymore, but we can be fertile in a different way. We can still be creative and do something that helps others, and while we help ourselves, obviously.
Oh yeah, I think it's a great time to actually, I think it is that time, isn't it, in the yogic kind of life wheel, that you're giving back to society, and it's whatever that phase is, the forester phase or something. I can't remember what it is, but anyway, so it's that kind of giving back in society.
It's like we're going to sort of winter phase of our life, when we journey deeper within ourselves, because there's no point in journey without. so
Well, there never was.
But now was in the first place, you're right.
Well, within
but
limits.
now we know.
But now
we know.
But it's and what for me in the last while, it's all become about the balance. Like, I mean, you can't be completely inner because you'd starve. You can't be completely outer because you're going to, freak out from anxiety and have a nervous breakdown. So it has to be somewhere. And I mean, it's that Goldilocks kind of, the middle path,
So when we do yoga, and we bring yoga outside in the marketplace, basically. So now, we are at that age that we are fearless. We can do that. We don't get it, which is great.
Getting there.
Sorry, my cat is jumping up and down.
That's all right. I can see her. It's lovely.
When we go into menopause, obviously hormones decrease, and what happens to the body, like, our future health, what can we expect, what do we need to take care of, our bones, I don't know, our heart.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, once you become menopausal, i.e. you're a year after a natural period, let's put it like that, and you're not on hormone replacement therapy, within 5 years of that, our cardiovascular risk equals the same as men. So we've lost all that protection from estrogen. So there's no doubt about it that heart health disintegrates, and heart health is actually it's the biggest killer of women in Ireland. Now I have figures. Oh yeah, here we are. I can never remember figures. So in 2018, 5,000 women in Ireland over the age of 65 died from a heart attack. So, you know, we're a small population, it doesn't sound too much, but if you compare that with, in the same year, 800 women with no age change, like it's not over 65 or anything like that, 800 women in total died from breast cancer. So heart health is really, really important, and estrogen is very important in delaying that coming on. The whole story around HRT and heart health is really complicated, and it's really interesting. The more you read, the less you know. I mean, it really is. And I have to say, a lot of and it's the same for lots of different areas in HRT. You know, the effect on breast cancer, the effect on stroke and clots, the effect on heart health. The one thing that we do know is that for sure is that HRT is brilliant for bones. Okay, so we'll park that for a second. But what I worry about is that a lot of the time, a lot of the information and the studies that are being run by the drug companies, and I think we have to be very, very careful as to what, you know, we have to have a very balanced approach. So the middle road that I would say for heart is to basically, if you want to be going on your hormone replacement therapy, you need to be doing it reasonably early in your journey through menopause, and stay on your HRT for about 5 years. Certainly you should be considering coming off your HRT at the age of 60. All right, because there seems to be evidence that the risks of stroke and of heart problems increases. And so we have these new forms of HRT called body identical and estrogen and micronized progestogen. Now, they're about 8 to 10 years old, so we don't really have an awful lot of information long-term on them yet. And the jury is totally out on them in terms of long-term benefit from a heart perspective. We really just don't know. So I think, you know, absolutely, if you want to go on HRT, and, you know, there's no doubt about it, HRT is the best form of treatment for hot flushes and night sweats. End of story. The problem is you know, and not everybody has all of these symptoms. Some people have very few, some people are absolutely debilitated by them. So it really depends on what you need. But really, after about 5 years, you should begin to think, right, do I need to still be on this? Should I be considering coming off it? So that is an issue in terms of our heart health, and our risk of stroke. But there's other things you can do for your heart health, like stop drinking, reduce your salt, exercise, and have a healthy BMI. So it always comes back to the basics in terms of our general health. And, you know, I mean, it's like running a car. If you put diesel into a petrol car, it doesn't run. If you put, you know, ultra processed foods into a machine that's kind of was established like 1 million years ago, or whatever length the time we're on the work, it's not going to work. I mean, ultra processed foods have no nutrient value, and you know, so, you know, we have to
think about foods, you know, what we take in, like liquids and food. You just drink and eat, but you know, there's a point in life like this one, when we go through this stage, you know, we kind of have to think, what am I eating? Is this good for me? Is this bad for me? You know, because, you know, obviously my body is changing, hormones are not there anymore. And
and it always amazes me how good our bodies are at coping with the crap that we give it. You know, and how we abuse our bodies, and it just keeps coming back and keeps kind of serving us. And really, we need to respect that, and we need to take care of it a lot better than we are.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, when I was younger, my young age, years and years and years ago, I wasn't even thinking about it, you know, so I would drink a little bit more. Thankfully, I never smoked, so there was a part of me that actually, you know, saw it right, never smoked in my life. But, you know, but I didn't, I mean, I wasn't really having a bad diet I wouldn't say I would eat a lot of junk food, especially because growing up in Italy,
Yes, yeah, exactly.
your parents, you're gonna have to sit down every meal
Yes.
and have a proper meal.
Yes, and
That's it,
how you're raised, and that's what I'm all we're banging on about this in the My Girls Gynae. If you're sitting in front of the TV eating a TV dinner or whatever the hell it is, a Deliveroo, and your daughter's doing the same, that's so bad, and she's going to have problems, and so are you, if you're doing.
And the problem is, you can do it once in a while. But the problem comes when we do it too often.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
and and it's not. Sometimes we think, oh my God, it's difficult to eat healthy. No, it's not, because even in big supermarkets, you're gonna find fruit and veg everywhere.
Yeah. And in Ireland, the quality of our food is actually extremely good.
It is. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
If
if you're vegetarian, if you eat meat or fish, the quality is excellent in Ireland. We know that, and you have fruit, you have vegetables. So there's no really reason to say, okay, I'm too busy to eat properly. But then in the long run, what's gonna happen?
Absolutely.
I went through that phase. I know how it feels, but then you get sick and you go like, oh, maybe I should have listened to my body when it was telling me, I don't like this food, so I eat these things. So just stop.
And the whole stress of life and getting home from work late. So much easier to get a takeaway, and it's just a slippery slope. And it's
interesting because sometimes, like my mom always told me, the food contains not only what's inside the food, the ingredients, but what you put inside the food, the energy that goes in the food. And I remember, that was very important for me, an important lesson, because we don't think about, the person cooking the food. That's an energy that gets transmitted into the food.
Yes.
I remember years and years ago, my mom is a retired, she's a professional cook. She retired years ago, but she would cook she worked private for a restaurant first, and then private for a countess, and this big deal in Italy. And then they used to have, in this place, they used to have Buddhist retreats. And there was a Buddhist monk that would come and sit in the kitchen with my mom and talk with my mom while she was preparing the food. And he would always say to my mom, I like to be here with you because you put so much love in the food you make.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah. She loved what she was doing, so she put love in that food. And the food that she gave you, it was handmade. It was all fresh, because the place was surrounded by farms, so everything was coming from the farms. And it was excellent, and you could feel it in your body. You wouldn't be like stuffed or sleepy, or you know what I mean. You would have much more energy as well. So that was one of the lessons that I brought with me from my mom.
No doubt about it. What you put in, you get out, and it's absolutely.
What's in it out as well. Yeah. I want to ask you something else now about. Let's see. I have lots of questions. How I was talking before. Sometimes we don't think about what we eat because we are so busy. Because the lifestyle we have, it is what it is. It's stressful. We have a 9-to-5 job. We have to go to work, and very often in these workplaces in Ireland, not only in Ireland, everywhere really, there's a lot of masculine energy, so there's always go, and we don't take in consideration the cycles of a woman's life, so the menstrual cycle. So what do you think? Is there a space in the marketplace in Ireland, maybe to talk about in these offices and companies, to talk about menopause? Is there any change we could make? Because honest to God, when I was working in banking and in import-export, so masculine,
I know, huge.
And then, we want to have the same rights, but at the same time, we're also very different, So,
we have the same rights, but the rights were set up by men who have entirely different needs.
Standards and needs, it's true.
That's absolutely it. So firstly, to say that we don't have a menopause policy in Ireland, okay, because I've looked this up. Now we do have an Employment Equality Act, which comes from 2021, And this protects against discrimination in respect of gender-related issues. So in other words, if you're a woman, you cannot be discriminated against because you're a woman, all right? That I feel is, or if you're a homosexual, you cannot be discriminated if you're homosexual or whatever, you know. Or if you're a white male, you cannot be discriminated because you're a white male. Because, like, you know, some white males are feeling under a lot of pressure at the moment. And, you know, it has been a white male world for a very long time. And we have to remember that things are changing, and some people are feeling very threatened by this. And that's, again, another issue. That's that duality business where it has to be one thing or the other. Of course it doesn't. It can encompass everything. So I think that there's a couple of countries, Spain recently, and a couple of, I think it was Malaysia or someplace in Southeast Asia, they have introduced menstrual holidays, if you like. So in other words, I know. So in other words, if you are a girl or a woman who suffers with really bad menstrual pain, you're entitled to, and it depends on where you are, maybe it's 1 day or 2 days per period to be off work. Isn't that amazing?
It is.
Fantastic. Now, you have to be a bit careful with it because you are going to get people who are going to abuse that. All right.
Of course,
yeah. You are also going to get people, and women as well as men, who are going to say, oh, there she goes again on a menstrual day off, you know, and there's going to be a bit of discrimination against that. And that's just bias. And that's what happened. But at least their hearts are in the right place. And I think it's a start, and it's a great start. So interestingly, the likes of Ireland, England, and America, there's nothing like that going on at all. And there's actually there's no menopause related strategy either. And I actually think that we need to look at it in a more positive way. So in other words, if we have a woman who's having a really bad time with her menopause, there should be a way around maybe reducing the length of her working day, reducing the length of the working week, or getting some time off without any penalties. Because as we were discussing, with age comes wisdom. And if we are losing a lot of older people from the workforce, we're going to lose a lot of experience and wisdom. We're seeing this in the health system at the moment. I retired at the age of 59, really. 60 officially. Maybe they're as well off without me. They probably are. But I just feel that, you know, I would have loved to have been able to take on a slightly different role in my, you know, as a mentor to younger people, rather than doing the crazy stuff that all the younger people are doing in the labor ward and stuff like that. So, you know, I think it's, you know, so different roles, different ways of working, and just bringing it into a much more positive light. But yeah, we don't have a menopause policy. There is talk about different companies bringing in their own menopause policies, and that's to be absolutely recommended. But I think it needs to be around a positive kind of message, rather than, you know, well, we're not going to fire you because you missed 5 days. Do you know, that kind of way? Because that's very negative. It's a very negative kind of way of looking at it. Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, I don't know. I don't know about any policy at the moment. I mean, I didn't look into it very much, but, you know, because I know a lot of places don't do anything. But even, like, you know, for example, and, you know, what happened with COVID, we worked from home, right? So a woman going through a very bad period or through menopause, and that day she has a very bad day. We're not working from home, you know, all these very simple things, you know, not like, you know, and start with something and see how it goes. And then, you know, changes can happen, you know, throughout the process. But obviously it's important to start, because, you know, imagine in a work situation, in an office, in a team, and there's a young girl doing internship, and she's going through her first periods, and then there is a lady going through menopause, you know. Those energies are opposite energy. A lot of hormones going on there, you know.
A lot of hormones. Well, that happens in a lot of houses as well. Can I just tell you, it's all over the place. But absolutely.
You know, and then obviously we need to ask women to make this to help with these policies, because obviously we don't know how it is, and it's not because, you know, I'm feminist or no, I'm not. I'm not a feminist, but I'm
No.
just saying, I'm just saying this because I know my body. A man doesn't know a
Yeah.
woman's body, so I
Yeah.
have to work with what I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Precisely.
start
Precisely.
making changes.
And
In conflict.
it's not a them or us situation. I mean, I think that men should be involved as
Yeah,
well because, you know, I mean, I think that's very important that the whole you know, company, if you like, or, you know, the men and the women take ownership of it as they would with other. I mean, you
yeah,
know, if you've got a chronic disease, there
yeah.
are you know, be you a man or a woman, you know, there are rules around all of that. So there's I can't, I mean, menopause isn't chronic. I mean, it's usually, you know, those terrible symptoms of perimenopause
Mhm.
tend to ease
Yeah.
eventually. And so, you know, it's not going to
But yeah,
stop
yeah,
women working
even
forever.
yeah, and
Yeah.
even like educating men
Yeah.
about menopause,
Yeah.
what it is, about the menstrual cycle because they don't know anything.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I have my period, even I'm talking to my husband, he always says, "I don't know what you're going through,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I
True.
respect you because I can see, what's
Yeah.
happening there."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's just yeah, yeah,
And I think, you know, as well, you know, just that, you know, that go, go, go energy. I mean, in terms of the work, but it's also the same for, you know, sport. And the way we live our lives has been laid down by the male prerogative. You know, it really
yeah,
has. Because they were the guys that got the education way back when, and the women stayed at home and had babies, you know. So
yeah.
we weren't at the table when the whole thing started to develop.
Making
And
yeah,
now that we're now at the table, it's
yeah,
time to bring
rebalance.
to rebalance it in a balanced way. It's not a them or us. Yeah,
No, it's
yeah.
not. It needs to be balanced. It's not
But
like
we need
when we
men.
talk about the divine feminine and the divine masculine rising, it's not about one or the other. It's
No.
both rising together because, even, but that energy that we hold within, he has to rise, the female has to rise with the male as well. Otherwise, it's going to be imbalanced again. So, we're going from an imbalance to another. So everything needs to be a balance and in union to work.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And
yes.
it's the
Absolutely.
same for everything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
uh, let me see, because I have lots of questions, but yeah, no, is there anything else you would like to add about health and menopause?
Um, I guess, you know, I mean, in terms of our bones, like bones, the I suffer a lot with bone problems actually. And it has definitely gotten worse since menopause. So a couple of things I think just to talk about bones, like number one, keep moving. All right, really, really important. I was talking to a friend of mine actually, he's a pain consultant and anesthetist. And he said, whatever else I've learned about pain, the one thing I've learned is keep moving. Do not stop moving because, you know, if you don't literally, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. I think vitamin D is very important for bones, calcium, and bit of sunshine if you can, and exercise. You know, it's really just keep moving and resistance, some
Yeah,
resistance exercise.
because we are
You know,
action beings. We are not static beings. We
we're made
move
to move.
constantly.
Yeah,
Everything moves in us constantly, so we have to keep moving. Yeah, yeah, and
yeah.
that's important for our muscles because obviously, to keep
Yes,
the
that's
bones.
important for our muscles
Yeah,
as well because the
yeah,
muscles tend to get thinner as well.
yeah. That's right.
Excuse me.
Bless you. So thank you so much. So I know you mentioned before the work you do with Paula about educating and women about the menstrual cycle. Do you want to say where the name of your website
Yeah,
and Instagram?
I'm
Yeah.
really sorry. I've had this cough.
Okay.
I think I'm out of. Oh no, I leave him. Yeah, Paula would have mentioned it. I'm sure it's My Girls Gynae, where and it's mygirlsgynae.com, and we're on Instagram. And we do workshops in schools, in sports clubs, and anywhere you'd like us to do a workshop. We really are hacking into the whole idea of activity balanced in our menstrual cycle, which you had mentioned earlier. So in other words, in the first part of your cycle, you're much more energetic. In the second part, you're less so. um, And the same, and again, different diets for different phases of the menstrual cycle. I'm going to have to stop talking.
That's okay. Now we actually reached the end of the interview. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, thank you so much. That was very interesting. And yeah, it was important for me just to have an idea, how the body works and what is HRT and, and the different things that happen to us, because, some women don't know about these things, we're not educated about different things. And
we tend to forget why, or we tend to forget because it's also, HRT based, that we don't actually understand why we might need HRT and what it's doing for us. So I think that's actually really important.
It's important to talk openly about these things, because it's always, I don't know, it's even with the menstrual cycle, everything is whispered, and I want to talk about it. It's important.
Yeah, it is.
Express how we feel and talk about it.
And it's changing though, which is great. It is changing. Yeah.
So thank you so much. And
great pleasure. See you next week.
I'll see you soon.
Thursday.
See you next week.
Yeah. Cheerio. Thanks.
Sacred woman I am, with bare feet I walk across the river's stones. Water in my blood and the earth in my bones. I tend a fire in my heart, so I am never alone. Sacred woman I am.